What evil lurks in the dark? A question we have all asked ourselves many times. Together, we can start uncovering the truth and mystery behind the darker side of the otherworldly. And now your host of See You in the Dark, Michelle Roos.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of See You in the Dark. Tonight's is going to be a little different. Well, not too different, but it's kind of on a personal side for myself. When my first show, we had talked about what I do and how, working with the paranormal and things that are out there, we're always talking about a balance of good and evil. Well, spiritual warfare, and spiritual attacks. I've been seeing a lot lately of people having some crazy havoc things happening to them. And, everybody talks about they're under a spiritual attack. And we have to be very careful when we start putting blame on certain things, because as we open that doorway, we are going to make ourselves prone to be attacked, whether it's started or hasn't started yet. Spiritual warfare, when we talk about it, this is, been like a Christian concept that involves fighting against evil forces. But it kind of gets me when we just try to categorize it in just a box, because it doesn't matter what your belief system is. There's spiritual attacks that can come, and we all just go a different way of trying to protect ourselves from these. When we talk about evil forces, that kind of interferes with human affairs. And and we have to think of these as, things that is either, we're talking demons, evil spirits. And again, any belief system we have out there, we all have the angels and we all have the demons. They might look different in everybody's cultures, but they have the same type of things they do to us. Their evil spirits will make illness on family members, will constantly attack them, bad luck, different things like that. But again, when we're talking negative energy, demons, we're talking about the same thing. So when I speak about it, it's not that I'm putting you down like you have to believe the way I do, because whatever your belief system is, you're going to still have the good and the evil. And we also spoke, I think it was last week or the week before, when we were talking about the balance. We got to keep the balance. And, one thing we were thinking about and talking about was, is the human race the balance between the good and the evil? And so, how do we navigate as the human race to be able to know which way we need to go to kind of protect ourselves? When we talk about it in the biblical sense, it is pretty much God's kingdom against Satan's kingdom. And if you guys know anything about demons and things like that, and I keep hearing this word over and over, he's patient and he's willing to destroy anything that goes in to the light. So we can say God or who we belong to God, or we can also state anybody that has the energy source of all light. The reason I was picking this subject, especially with spiritual attacks, is I've been kind of working on something for a while. I can't go into a lot of details, but it's not just one person, it's a group of people. There's been different attacks done in different ways, whether it's physical, it's rumor based, it's just being just totally disgusting, mean, and trying to work on this, we found out there is one source. And that source, like they say, if you're going to make a deal with the devil, you need to pay up one way or the other. And if you don't pay up, it starts messing with people around you. I've been, I guess you could say maybe under attack, but I have been getting these dreams for over a week now. It happened again last night. And this dream is so real that it's actually starting to make me question my own sanity. Because at this point, I'm like, I need the answers yesterday. What am I missing? It's like that puzzle you have on the table and you've been working on it and you're needing that one piece, but that one piece disappeared and you can't find it. So now your puzzle is not together. All I keep seeing is this man standing in a long red robe with gold trim all the way down it. And I know there's sigils on it, but I can't focus in on them. Even though I'm constantly drawn to them, I'm not able to see them. I see myself in this dream. It is so real that I'm on my knees and I'm screaming and crying on the top of my lungs, but nothing's coming out. And all this person's doing is pointing into a void, saying, "You need to help them. You need to help them. Get to the priest." And then all of a sudden, a picture of a church appears. This dream is so in depth that it literally shocks me out of bed. So, you kind of go grab you some water, you kind of shake it off, and you want to go lay back down, and it goes right back into it. Now, there's different signs that have been happening throughout this whole thing. And, they say when we prepare for any type of spiritual warfare, we have to prepare ourselves. We do get messages, we do get different things. But a really wise young man had told me, you need to stop a minute. You need to have patience. And this word keeps coming up because I'm like, okay, I understand. I know this is what I need to wait for. But again, as me being part of the human race, I need to know those answers yesterday. Not realizing that something is going to come in the effect to give me the answer I'm looking for. But because I'm trying so hard, I am starting to get all these other attacks. And when I'm talking other attacks, it's my mind also messing with me because now everything I'm seeing or everything I'm doing, I'm looking at it not just as an everyday thing, but at could this be a sign? Is this what I've been waiting for? So part of this whole spiritual war going back and forth, I'm having to retrain myself to say, okay, stop for a minute, let it just unfold. And I keep repeating that over and over again. But yet then I keep catching myself going, oh my God, I just seen that. Okay, that must be part of this puzzle. And then I feel like I'm taking 3 steps back. A lot of, spiritual warfare, has been practiced amongst Christians. Some of those practices include exorcisms, the laying on of the hands, fasting with prayer, anointing oil, different things like that. And as we go through other beliefs, they do different things like that, but still, it's always saying, wait a minute, take a step back. You're going to constantly have something thrown at you because you're into this war between the two, you're going to get things thrown at you. Just like when you go to war, each side has a game plan of what they're going to do. What's the next attack? And so now I'm having to step back to figure out, okay, I want to be on this side, but I feel like I'm sitting here and I'm going to be continuously attacked. Why am I not moving forward? What am I waiting for? Am I waiting for that opening to walk across to be able to put that attack back and start getting my own peace of mind? And I am just telling you my story, but I know there's a lot of you out there that are probably going through the same thing. You know, when we start seeing things because we're so driven with social media and different things on TV, we all want to know these answers. And because we have everything at our fingertips, we have retrained our minds to we want it now. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going through that struggle right now. I am second guessing everything. Anybody says something to me, I'm like, is this good? This bad? Why am I not getting these answers? We all have different ways we pray, the way we speak, what we do. And again, this young wise man told me, change the way you're asking. And I didn't understand at first. What do you mean a different way of asking? I'm asking for guidance. I'm asking to clear my vision so I can see what I'm going against. To find out the way I was asking was considered a very selfish way of asking, not can you put that path in front of me so I can follow you to that answer instead of what can you do for me? It was me, me, me. Almost like my ego needed that right away, and I expect you to be on my speed dial to give it to me. And so this has kind of changed my whole outlook of how we're going to combat the side of evil. And then when I'm talking evil, I'm talking things that are so negative that you have to combat it almost like you're in a war. But you're in a war for yourself. You're in a war to protect your soul, your light. And all we want to do is hurry up and get to the front line. We talk about different things, what can be kind of the enemies of our souls, you know, and what is the enemy of society? Because we have now been retrained of the way we're thinking. We talk about the world, the flesh, and, we talk about our flesh, the world, the devil. Different things can happen, when we talk about combating something that's very evil, everybody's automatically, I'm a demonologist. I'm an exorcism person. I can do this, but you can't. None of us really can until we understand how to reconstruct ourselves to be able to do that. You know, Strange things have been happening. Look at our weather. Look at the crazy illnesses that are coming out. These are things that we're supposed to be fighting against of how can we make those changes and how do we do those? You know, we call ourselves spiritual warriors, we're all there to help each other, whether we're giving readings or we're helping a family cope with whatever negative stuff that's in their homes. And as we're going in, we're constantly doing, 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 shutting down our energy, but not realizing that we're going in by ourselves because now we have left the rest of the troops behind us because we didn't stop and we're not figuring out how do I go forth to get this taken care of. And it's really hard when it's happening to you because I need to know the answers. I want to know what am I fighting against right now? What I do know, it's super dark. What I do know, it has been conjured. What I do know is it's older than time itself. But what I don't know is how do I push it back? How do I protect myself? How do I protect others? And why am I constantly having this same dream telling me where to go, what I need to do? But since it's not making sense to me, anything else that I have to see, it's kind of like pushing me away to this side of, okay, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't seem normal. So I'm not going to. And then found out, you know what? What kind of traits, what kind of things can I do to be that person, that warrior that's going to help myself and anybody else that I help as I go along this journey? And they always say there's about 8 traits that a spiritual warrior should have. And when you start thinking about these traits, you're like, well, of course, you need awareness. And that means, we should, possess an expanded awareness. In other words, look past what's in front of you because what you're seeing in front of you is just the mask. The danger is behind it. But again, you're focusing just what's in front of you. And this is happening to me right now. Of course, we've got to have courage. That one, I do pretty good. If I know that somebody is desperately in need, somebody is hurting, I have the courage to go after it. But slowing down because I have some of the awareness of what's going on, but I don't have the full picture. Got to have some discipline. I can say I possess pretty good discipline, but in this situation that I'm going through right now, the discipline's kind of just flying out the window, and I am having to reel it back in. And that's kind of hard because, we all stay disciplined in everything we do, whether it's our jobs or if it's a diet or anything we do, we have it to that point, but do we ever really expand on it? And that's, again, learning points of what we need to do. Some of the other ones is relentlessness. Well, that one I've got down. Um, I'm not going to stop, and I won't stop until I know. Do I know that I'm going to beat it completely? Absolutely not. Do I know I can push it back and have it, where it started so it can't do anything? Yes, I can. And I will continue until that happens. Being very cunning, that's kind of hard there too. And the crazy thing is, part of those 8 traits that we're supposed to possess as we become spiritual warriors is patience. Whew, that word has been popping up and popping up. It's almost like hooked on phonics. I just keep seeing it, so it sticks in my head. And I feel like that is definitely one of my messages is the patience. Sweetness is also part of it. How do we treat others? How do we treat ourselves? And when I mean treat yourself, doesn't mean treat yourself like you think you're the best of all of it and let the ego take over that. But how are you treating your capsule? How are we taking care of ourselves to keep that light? And of course, love. When there's tragic as a whole, everybody comes together. But soon as that gets cleaned up a little bit, everybody spreads back out. And then we all become these different types of creatures, you know, running on the bandwagons of just kind of tearing each other up because we think we're the best. But we never stop and think that when we talk about these certain things, like when you're talking about Satan, and you're talking about how he presented himself as a serpent and stuff like that. Got to remember some of the things that were being done were mind games. How can I manipulate your mind to stop doing what you're doing because I want you to do this? And we all fall into those because we have something that might be just put in front of us. We have some people that, you know, especially when I'm talking social media and TV and stuff, everybody wants that 5 minutes of fame. So when you get that 5 minutes of fame and it's getting presented to you, on this silver platter, but you have to do A, B, and C to get that, our mind will start going, okay, I understand that. Okay, I can do this because then I'm going to get this. You know, things start going wrong, things start happening, you know, that negative energy starts messing with people and starts being called the accuser. Let's blame everybody else for what's happening to you because it's easier to spread lies. It's easier to try to get a band of people around you because, you want to say things because if this person's in your life, it could probably change it to good, or it could be messing up what you're trying to achieve as the end game. So if I can throw that out there and get people to start being nasty and hating that person, well, right there, that's another part that's going to be on that balance. And now it's starting to go the opposite way. You know, there's different ways of disasters that can be done. People are you we have things that happen in our lives. It seems like when you have that one little bit of bad luck, sometimes you got 3, 4 after that, and it almost feels like you just can't take on anymore. And then you get just enough to tip that scale. And we fall into that. We don't stand up and say, "Wait a minute, this is not gonna happen. We can't do this. I need to wait. I know this is gonna be okay. So all this is gonna happen." And the tempers. Look at the tempers that are all over the world right now. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody could say there's a pebble in the road, but somebody else is gonna say, "No, that's a boulder." And then things just flare up to see who's right, who's wrong. And so we're constantly feeding that negativity into ourselves. You got to remember, we as the human race, we're like sponges. We take in everything. We take people's feelings. We take all of that in. But we never stop to think, hey, we need to release this. Where do I go to do this? Do I put on this armor? How do I do it? We can all say words. Everybody can say words, just like think about the paranormal field. One person on a paranormal show goes, "We're going to cleanse this house and we're going to use sage." Next thing you know, it's all across the board that the only way you can cleanse a house is to use sage, which is very wrong. There's all different ways of doing it. But because one said this is what it is, so then we all put blinders on, or what I call the zombie effect, and just follow that lead and say, I don't want to say something different because I'll get attacked. So we have to remember we have to protect ourselves. We'll continue here in just a couple minutes. We're just going to hear from our sponsors.
Hey, UFO conference enthusiasts. We've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UnX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us number one on Paranormal Talk Radio.
Welcome back. We've been talking about spiritual warfare, spiritual attacks. How do we recognize those? How do we know if it's really a spiritual attack or not? And, we've been in a spiritual warfare for a very long time. And, a lot of people used to talk about it, and it's just one of those words that people just throw out, just like people just throw out paranormal investigator or demonologist and different things like that. But do we really have an understanding of all of it? Spiritual attacks can be all different ways of things that can happen. But we also have to be very conscious of, is it an actual spiritual attack? Or is this something that, we have manifested ourselves? Right now, the way things are, it seems like everything is a spiritual attack. But you will know that by the way you feel with yourself. And what I mean is, if you're feeling like your body is constantly getting just beat up, not on a physical realm, but just in the spiritual side of it. Is your brain starting to mess with you that you're overthinking everything that you're doing? You know, um, is it a temper that, you see something, even if it's posted like on Facebook? Are you reading something and then you're reading into it and it just starts causing all this anxiety for you and different things? Those types of things are spiritual attacks. And what you need to do is to make sure that you're protecting yourself over that. They talk about, when the angels came to fight the demons, they wore all this armor and the different types of armor you can wear for yourself. One, you have to stand your ground. You have to know what you believe in. If you actually believe that you can use just some stones and some blessed salt to cleanse a house and make sure all negativity's gone, then you stand by that. Not because somebody might put a comment down saying, well, that doesn't seem real. You can only do it this way. Why are you trying to put false information out there? And then you crumble into that person and then go, well, this could be part of it. No, if you know it works, then you stand by it. Because when you're doing that, it's almost like you're belting out that truth. It's okay if I lose 5, 6 followers because I'm standing by what I believe. And that's one way to stop with some of the spiritual attacks. If you know somebody is wronging somebody and you're standing up and you're fighting for that person, not caring if you're going to lose 3, 4 other people, that's part of putting that armor on to stop some of these spiritual attacks. You have to still take care of your body. You have to take care of your mind, your soul. Because if you let it crumble down and you take this statue of yourself and just let it just crumble into nothing but dust, how are you going to continue to help other people in the same type of thing? We have to make sure that when we talk about this, we have to have a breastplate. We have to have the right footwear. We have to have our actual, armor, that we have swords or whatever it is, but it's all in a spiritual sense. Doesn't mean everybody go out, and dress like they did back in the King's day, but we have to make sure we have that kind of protection over us. Whether that's we put in our shield or when we meditate, we put ourselves in these bubbles or whatever works for you. You've got to be able to have that. But here's the biggest thing. To be able to combat this, you have to know that's your truth and that this is something that's going to protect you. And whatever you put out into the universe, it's going to do that protection too. You can't go through this, just kind of half-assed. Sorry for the language, but that's the best way to say it. And that's what a lot of us do. We're going to go full-fledged. We're going to show this and we're going to fight this. But, oh, wait a minute. A couple of people said that doesn't seem like it's right. So I'm just going to do halfway. And then I'm going to now navigate and put a little bit of what everybody else says. And now what you were going to do is not yours anymore. I've met people who have spoke up when people are doing wrong and haven't even taken a second to think, hey, what could happen to me? That is a person you see that's standing up, knows what the truth is, and is going to make sure that truth gets out. Whether only 3 people take that truth, still going out there to do that. When you have people, we all think everybody's friends. Yes, we do have friends on Facebook and things like that, and maybe outside of Facebook. But we are the type of beings that we need to feel loved. We need to feel like what we're doing is a great thing. And it's okay to have that, but you also got to be able to step up too. Not just because, somebody might be famous or not famous or has a lot of good things happening or maybe just having some bad times. When you start figuring those things out, and I think that's where the word patience is coming in for me, is to navigate myself through and figuring out, why am I doing this? What are those answers I'm looking for? And how do I ask for them in a way that doesn't seem selfish or seem like I have to boost my ego? And we all have ego. Not one person can say they don't, because we do. We we are so into this point of, okay, this person got these many likes, so I need to do something so I can get more. Well, let me tell you, when you're doing a spiritual war, It doesn't matter how many likes you have, it is still going to mess with you when you turn that computer off or your phone off. So now let's look at how many likes you can have in the spiritual realm. That's going to back you up as that spiritual army as you start going to combat with that negative that's been coming at you full force. You know, when we look at wars, everybody builds walls and different things to protect those behind it. I think this is how we have to do it on the spiritual side. Build those walls to protect ourselves from what's coming from the outside so we can continue to think of how do we move forward to make sure we beat what's coming at us. Like I said, this has been kind of a personal thing for me too, because this is the first time I feel so out of control of how am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do with it? And yes, I've been asking people, I've been talking to people, and what I'm doing is the information coming at me, how do I kind of go through it? Am I looking, I'm looking for guidance in different ways. So it's kind of this thing of I need to find myself again to know how to step back for a minute and say, okay, I need to look at this as another whole picture. I mean, you think about detectives when they're trying to solve a crime. You know, they have that board and they're putting all these puzzle pieces together to see how things are linked and how this is going. So as I'm navigating through this, I'm like, okay, I need to think of it this way. And how can I, follow this trail of figuring out how can I protect myself and all those involved. And then, of course, the word patience keeps coming up. Funny story, driving on a back road this morning. There's no water around, just a fence and cattle. As I'm driving down that road, I'm like, God, that looks like a big boulder in the road. So I slow down a little bit so I can get into another lane. Now, this is just a 2-lane, making sure there's no oncoming traffic. And as I'm passing this so-called boulder, it is a huge turtle, just taking its time crossing the road. And I'm like, if that is actually a sign, that is the best sign I have ever gotten because that made me slow down, made me look both ways. So I knew how to get around it without just running right straight over and going, oh, why didn't you let me know sooner? But then I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I know I have to have patience. I know I need to slow down. When we start taking care of ourselves, our mind, our body, our souls, this is how we're going to start winning over spiritual attacks. You have to find what works for you. What works for me might not work for you, but it doesn't mean we can't all come together because as you look at it as a whole, we all end up doing the same thing, just going different paths of doing it. And then you got to know when to shut it down. You know, when you know you're becoming under a big attack, don't go in there wide open. Don't give that light to the darkness to come in and say, okay, thank you for the invite. You need to know when to shut down and know how to just kind of back it up a little bit so you're ready. I don't know how many people are going to be able to, agree, disagree with me, which is okay. But what I'm going through right now is so real that it's actually taken a physical effect on me. This is why this show came about, because I had no clue what we were going to talk about tonight, but it just kept popping in. And I'm like, okay, this could be a message for all of you, or it could just be mainly a message for me of me maybe listening to myself. because I know it starts with me, it starts with you, and then you build from it. You can have cleansings, you can have cord cuttings, you can have all that done. But did you know none of that will work unless you take the first steps before? I mean, you think like when somebody's going into surgery, all the prep work beforehand. Make sure everything's there. Make sure we have the right people there. This is the same exact thing. We always go full board. Let's just run in. I've got some holy water. I've got a cross. And I'm just going to run in and say, here I am, and never prepped. So a lot of people have to remember, like when I'm going to help some families and stuff like that, I do prep. But this particular thing that we're dealing with right now, it's hard to prep for because it's a lot bigger than just in one little area. And so that's why it's got me a little bit outskirts. But I feel like I'm needing to be in this because there's going to be something even bigger afterwards. And this is probably my so-called basic training of figuring out how I'm going to navigate through this spiritual war and how am I going to protect myself from all those attacks. And again, these attacks doesn't always mean it's going to be something bad. It could just be little minuscule things that just keep adding up and adding up that it's just starting to mess with you where you're getting frustrated, where it's starting to mess with your sleep, where you're just teetering of not knowing whether you're going to be angry or you're going to cry. And then you try to cry because you want to cleanse yourself, but no tears come out. And so then now, you're getting angry of why can I not show this emotion? And that's kind of the cycle of a spiritual attack. It brings you and keeps twirling around just like a tornado. It just runs havoc through where it's going. And so you're feeling like you were doing right, but now you think it's wrong. Those are the things that will mess with your psyche and will start making you doubt what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're seeing. And so that is what you're going to have to protect. That is what you're going to have to try to figure out, what can I do? And like I said, I'm going to follow some advice of the patients because I know it's going to present itself, which is going to be very, very hard for me. I'm going to learn how to ask in a different way. And I'm going to take what is given to me and do with it what I am told to do with it instead of taking, asking, and doing it yesterday. And that itself will be its own little journey. But if we all start doing that kind of stuff, we stand our ground, we belt out the truth. We don't accuse people of things unless we know they have a backup to show it. We're not going to talk about all the negative about somebody because they wronged you. Because what's happening is when I had done stuff like that, it's feeding into this negative that I am fighting against. And it has to stop. But I catch myself as we're discussing it to always fall back on, well, this person said this, this, and this. Of course they did. Like I needed to boost it for myself. But I know that pierced me so bad. And I'm like, okay, that's one of those mind games. And I didn't think about it that way. Starting to clear my mind of saying, I'm not going to keep going into that area. I'm going to go with the facts. This is what's happening. This is how it happened. This is probably what started it. And this is how we're going to go after it. And I think putting that clear intention written down of knowing the steps that I need to take will help me fight this attack that's happening, not just to myself, to numerous people. And it's not all about words or things like that. We're talking physical attacks. We're talking personal attacks. We're talking different things. So everybody's getting it in a different way, but we know the source is all the same. And so playing these mind games with myself and me trying to figure it out is kind of making it where I'm not good for somebody else to help them. So again, I have to stand my ground. I have to put my armor on. I need to figure out, how am I going to go after this? Because I'm really good at telling everybody else how to take care of themselves. But I've never looked in the mirror right now and said, hey, this is what you need to do. And that's what you need to do for yourselves. If you're starting to go under these attacks, make sure you know it is an actual spiritual attack, not just because it's an everyday thing. And let's blame somebody else. If we stop blaming everything on the negative, we stop giving it its power. Because every time you say, well, I'm doing this, I think demons are on me, and I think this is on me. Well, now you're giving them more power than what they actually have. We got to remember, we're the power. We were created with the most beautiful light ever. Why do you think we have so many people with abilities? We have a light that shines. Our soul shines. So why would we let somebody just come and rob us from it? We protect our homes. We protect our families. We need to have that same mindset to protect ourselves, so we can actually make good things happen instead of just constantly being on that treadmill of going back like round and round and round and feeding to the negative. And again, like I said, everybody has a different way of reaching their goals. There is no right way or wrong way. There are guidance to track us down a certain way. And it's how we each perceive the messages we get and what we do with that. And that is what is really your biggest weapon. So, yes, I know it can take you down when things just keep happening and happening and happening, because you're at the point, your physical mind and body is just like, I can't take this anymore. I can't do it anymore. Why is this happening to me? But it is preparing us for whatever else might come, which could be bigger. And so we do need to step back. We're going to all fight certain demons of some sort. We probably already have. We're probably still doing it. But realize we are the power. We are the ones that can make it happen. And when I say this to you guys, please know I'm saying it to myself too. Because there's times when I step back going, can I really do this? Why am I doing this? And because I see the things I see, is it really a blessing or a curse? And then I start doubting what I can do. So whatever you do, never, ever dumb yourself down. It's an injustice to you. It gives power to them, because you are that actual warrior. We are all spiritual warriors. You don't have to be a psychic, a medium, an empath, a sensitive to actually be a spiritual warrior. Because we also need you around to help us, keep us guided just as much as we keep you guided. And making sure you're taking care of yourself too. Just because you might not see the dead, or because you might not believe in certain things, doesn't mean you're not needed. We're all needed somewhere at some point. We all meet each other for certain reasons. I've met people in my life like, I would have never thought I'd meet you. I've been put in places I'm like, I would have never thought I'd be here. You know, it's not coincidence that we end up in places or see or meet people. It's because there is a bigger thing out there that we're all supposed to meet. Yes, we're going to have the bad that we have to flush out. We've got the good that will stay, but that's in anything we do. And also know that we've been in this spiritual war a long time and it's not going to end. We're going to be fighting this for decades. But at least we can be smarter of how we do it and maybe push it back a little more than people in the past have. And yes, we're always going to meet those people that are going to be so power hungry that they'll do anything. That's why a lot of the movies can do things like selling your soul to the devil, because there are people who do that. But it's not our job to say, hey, you did wrong. It's our job to protect ourselves and the people around us from people like that. It's just things that, we have to start writing it down and looking at it in the sense of what makes sense to me. How will I go about this? We can do all the cleansing we want. Lavender baths. You can use your sage. We can carry stones. We can put on all sorts of charms and blessed necklaces and blessed everything. But you got to remember, those are all just material things. And those material things don't work unless you're working from the inside and your true intentions is working with those objects. There's too many people out there that want to just use objects and think just because everybody's carrying tourmaline or obsidian that it works for all. Well, it doesn't. You make it work for you. So remember that as you're going through your own attacks, your own of where do I belong? And you got to remember, we're always going to be fighting something on darker. And it's always going to be some type of demon, if that's what you want to call it. But we can actually be stronger and wiser to be able to do that. And again, when we put on this stuff, this armor, make sure you have your helmet, your shield, your breastplate, your swords. Protect it all. But also know that you're not alone in this and everybody's going through something. Doesn't matter how big or how small. But the more of us that can get together and kind of work on this will actually help us beat what's out there that's constantly trying to tear us down, because it'll never stop. We're just going to work smarter, not harder. As we're coming to a close of the show, if you are struggling with any kind of spiritual attacks or trying to find a way, you can always reach out to me. You can either private message me on Facebook, or you can actually email me at roosemichelle@gmail.com. I might not have all the answers, but I can tell you I'll stand behind you and be one of your soldiers and help you too. And before I end this tonight, I am sending everybody love and light, and know that you're not alone. Until next time, I'll see you in the dark.